All right. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Really appreciate everyone for coming out. Obviously want to thank my marketing team for putting this together and making all of this possible. So what we're diving into today, buying right and investing smarter. What we're going to go over is going to be determining your ARV, forecasting rehab costs, protecting liquidity, planning your exit, looking at different case studies and examples, and how FlipCo can help investors win. A little bit about me. I'm the Director of Business Development here at FlipCo Financial. I do lead our originations team. We have a decent amount of experience in the sales world. That's where I've always been. And I definitely think that the next evolution for FlipCo Financial will be having boots on the ground in the different states that we service. Born and raised in Houston. And some fun facts about me: I do enjoy spending time with my wife and my son. I like to lift, and I do enjoy smoking a good brisket. So first things first, determining our after repair value. If you overpay on day one, you're already behind. So looking at determining your property values, ARV does stand for your after repair value. So that's going to be your estimated market value of a property after you've done all the work. So after you've gone through, replaced the guts, made it look pretty, that's going to be your ARV. So how you determine that? That's going to be identifying your true comparable sales, determining your average price per square foot, and then cross-checking with market conditions to make sure that you're still in line. So when you are determining ARV and finding comps, first thing you're going to be doing is pulling property sales data, right? So make sure that you're working with a realtor with an investor mindset. There are plenty of agents out there who, focus strictly on residential sales, are commission driven. You really need to protect yourself and make sure that you are working with a realtor who has experience in the REI space. Making sure that you're leveraging online platforms such as PropStream, REI Pro, or Privy. And then obviously if you want to go old school and just do a public record search. Second point, what's considered comparable? What do we consider comparable? What's been sold within the last 6 months? Making sure that you're looking at apples to apples, right? Same bed and bath count. We want to be within 1 mile. We want to have a 15% square foot variance. And we want to have a similar style / condition and amenities, making sure that our properties are the same. We're not comping a cute colonial or a bungalow to a raised ranch. Those things aren't going to comp out the same way. And then third point, making sure that you're adjusting for differences, right? So no two properties are exactly the same. We're going to adjust that sales price based on those differences. And then obviously taking into account differences in bed and bath counts, if someone has a carport versus a garage, pool, and then the location on the street. So how you want to back into your offer price. We like to use the 70% rule. So that's going to be 70% multiplied by your estimated ARV, subtracting your estimated rehab, and that's going to give you your maximum allowable offer. So, for example, if you have a property that you think is going to be worth $300,000, you would multiply that by 0.7. That's going to give you $210,000. You think it's going to take $60K to get you to that $300,000 ARV. So you subtract that from your 210. Looking at your max offer should be around $150,000. We understand that the market right now, that this is hard to do, hard to achieve. The market is much leaner right now, but those deals, you can still find them. We are still having deals brought to us, good deals. They're typically always off market. If you're just looking at market deals, Zillow, that's not going to be your best bet. You're going to have to kind of get into the nitty gritty and find those deals off market. So making sure you understand your numbers and seeing some common mistakes that we see on the valuation side, right? So again, touching base on that realtor, do they have experience in this space? That's a huge one. Making sure that you're not working with someone you're just working with them because they're your girlfriend, because they're your uncle, because they're your aunt. Like making sure that they have experience and they're going to take the best care of you. Thinking that you can set the market. I'm going to be the best house in the block. I'm going to set I'll set the market. The comps are the comps for a reason. If everything in your pocket is selling for $210,000 and you think that you're going to get to $270 because You're going to put in the nice finishes. You're going to finish out the backyard. You're going to make sure your curb appeal is on point. When a realtor is going and talking to their clients about buying your house, they're going to say, hey, I think this is overpriced. Look, everything else here is sold for 210. They're listing at 270. We should come in at 215 or whatever. They're making sure you understand that the market sets kind of those comps, not what you want. And then cherry picking your data, right? Finding data to make the numbers work versus using data to determine if a deal works. Perfect example of that is, when you're comping out a property and you do see, you see there are properties within a mile that are giving you, your ARV of 300,000, let's say. However, and those properties, those 3 properties are 3/4 of a mile away. They're within our miles. That's awesome. However, directly in the neighborhood, around the street, 2 doors down, there's 3 more comps that are showing you that your subject property is probably closer to 260 or 270. Just cherry picking the properties that are going to give you that highest value, you're only hurting yourself, and you're kind of skewing the data to make your valuation work, when realistically you should be taking that lower valuation because those comps are right around the corner. And then obviously in this day and age, there is a tremendous reliance on AI, which we think is great. There is a lot to be said about leveraging AI to make your life and your process easier. However, it's not going to be the end all be all, and you should 100% still be talking to an experienced human when you're coming to your final answers. Forecasting rehab costs. Measure twice, spend once. So rehab essentials, this is going to be your blueprint for how you're going to be working on this project. Who's your team? We're going to look into breaking your scope into line items, matching the rehab quality to your exit strategy. Don't forget about your non-rehab items that you're still going to be held accountable for, and understand your carrying costs. So this is, to me, probably the most important aspect of flipping a house, besides sticking to your rehab budget, but building your team. Determine how involved you can and want to be, and know the support that you need. If you're a first-time investor, you work a 9 to 5, you've done some stuff around your house, you've put in a backsplash, you've replaced some doors, and you think that you can handle the demo of a 2,000 square foot house. I mean, you need to be realistic. You're going to be coming home, and a lot of these loans that you're getting are 3 to 6 month loan terms or shorter loan terms. Are you going to be able to operate well in both aspects of your life, both your flip and your professional life, and execute the demo of this house? Put in that sweat equity. Does it make sense? You need to be working with licensed and qualified contractors and vendors. And on that note, you need to be reviewing the contractor's past work. There is no shame in asking for past projects that are being done, and potentially even asking, hey, can I swing by one of your job sites that you're currently working on? Let me see the work that you're doing now. Making sure that you are personally walking the property with your general contractor. You're going to be able to see things in person that you just miss out on via pictures or a video walkthrough. Make sure that you're doing your due diligence on the front end with your contractor. So, determining your line items, right? So how we want to see things broken down: exterior general, interior general, flooring, kitchen, bathrooms, mechanical systems, and miscellaneous. There's always going to be, no houses are exactly the same. There's always going to be some items that fit into that miscellaneous. So making sure that you leave room for those unseen issues that may pop up. Making sure that you're matching your quality to your exit and the market, right? So what level of finishes do you need to match your end user? Are you going to be fixing and renting? And if so, you need to prioritize durability. Are you doing this as a fix and flip? So you would obviously need to prioritize resale appeal. Always, always, always avoid over value add. There's no reason to just be putting money into a project that you'll never see a return on. And then obviously you need to consider professional fees, right? So your city permits, architectural and engineering plans, surveys, and inspections. So there's obviously other costs that you're going to be held accountable to that don't just involve your rehab, right? So there's your carrying costs, your financing costs. So what are your loan interest payments, your draw fees, and inspection fees? Property taxes. If your home's in an HOA, you will be responsible for those fees while you're in the loan. Builder's risk and flood insurance, utilities and lawn maintenance. What are you doing to maintain that property? Are you the one mowing the lawn out there every day? Or are you hiring someone to come and do it? It's not every day, excuse me, every month. Or are you hiring someone to come out there and make sure the lawn is taken care of. And then making sure that you have contingency funds. It is not a question of if something will go wrong, but when it goes wrong. Making sure that you're prepared so you don't get caught flat-footed in that instance. Common mistakes that we see: paying your contractor or your subs in full prior to the completion of work. That's a huge no-no. Making sure that you are protecting yourself. You can pay those GCs and those contractors as they go. There's absolutely no need to be paying 50% or even all of it up front. If you're seeing on the line itemed receipt that they're giving you, the plan of work that they have, if there's 20% plus in GC fees, that's too much. You can give pushback on that and try and negotiate that down, but that's a red flag for us. Making sure that you have a signed contract with explicit deliverables and a timeline with your GC, right? You're going to be the one that's caught holding the bag with this if the project goes sideways. So making sure that you have an agreement with your GC. Getting special pricing. If something sounds too good to be true, it more than likely is. If you have 3 different teams come out, quote the flooring for your house, you've got 2 around 7 and 1 at 4, thinking that you're going to, oh man, I'm going to take that 4K, I'm going to save some money, I'll be able to put more into the kitchen, I'll be able to put more into the primary bath. What we see happening time and time again, when you take those low bids, you get subpar work, and then you have to end up paying that guy the $7,000 that you didn't want to pay the first time, and you have to pay him to rip up the work from the first guy. So just make sure that you're doing your due diligence with those contractors on the first time around. And then, cutting costs with sub-tier quality materials. People can always tell, if you're trying to sell a nice home and there's really cheap cabinets, or, you don't have slow close, that's always going to come back and bite you in the rear. So making sure that you are protecting your liquidity. You can't spend equity on materials. So cash is king. Make sure you're protecting your liquidity, right? So you can have a really, really beefy spread on a deal, right? You're going to make more than 25%. But if you are unable to continue funding your contractors, if you're unable to do work, to take draws, you are delaying your project. And every day that you're in this project, you are cutting into your ROI. So making sure that you're looking into that very, very carefully at the onset of your project. So what do we consider liquid assets? Cash and bank accounts, funds in money market or business accounts, available credit that you have, so business lines, HELOC accounts. You have a silent partner who's just obviously is like kind of your capital partner, what they have, that's ready to go. And then non-liquid assets. So equity in your property, just because you bought it for so cheap doesn't mean that we're going to give you, or lenders will give you, oh, we're going to front 20K of rehab draws because you bought this property, so you bought it so cheaply. We won't do that. Equipment or inventory, hey, I have all this flooring, I already have a washer and dryer, I have the appliance package. Can I get some cash for that? No, we will not provide, that we won't consider that a liquid asset. Retirement funds, so we really see this a lot with our clients providing 401ks as part of their minimum reserves. That's not something we view as liquid. So making sure that you are taking that into account. And then credit cards. We will not view credit cards as a part of your liquidity. Those can be used in your project as you're paying for things. Then you essentially can use FlipCo to be paying down those credit cards. However, we will not take those into account when it comes to liquidity. So cash flow maintenance, right? So making sure that you're planning for overruns. Always recommend a 10 to 12% contingency. We want you to have 1 to 2 months of carrying costs past your estimated date of completion, right? The market's a little bit softer right now. Houses are not selling as fast as they were back in 22, right? You have to be prepared for your market to sit for 30, 60 days and be prepared to handle those costs. And then be able to fund one of your rehab draws out of pocket, right? Get the project started, get your renovation started by having the liquidity to fund get the work started, fund one draw. Make sure that you're leveraging hard money. So lenders can typically finance up to 100% of the rehab. Make sure that you have the funds, make sure you have the draw funds prior to reimbursement, and then knowing your draw fees, right? This is going to be something that's critical with most lenders. What's a draw fee? What's an inspection fee? What's the turnaround time? When I submit for a draw, how long does it take for you to send out your inspector to come look at my property? How long does it take for him to generate his report, get it back to you, and then for you to get back to me? What does that whole process look like, and how much does it cost me each step of the way? Something that sets us apart, we have 0 draw fees, and we can get your draw process within 72 hours. So, and then also differentiating between your project life and personal life. So personal savings are always going to be for emergencies, which you have going on personally, and then your business savings are for overruns. Making sure that you're taking into account your essential monthly expenses and you're not deviating from that when you're managing a project. So, summarizing what we just talked about, right? So, what are your upfront day one costs of acquiring the project? And then how much money do you have left to work with post-closing? What's your cost just to complete the rehab? And then what are your non-rehab costs that you need to complete the project? Making sure that you protect your reserves with personal versus business. Make sure you're not, pulling all of your personal funds into your flip. Something happens in your life, an unexpected medical event, a car accident, and then you're caught flat-footed, not knowing what to do. And then being prepared to carry out dual exit strategies. You may start off saying, hey, I'm going to hold this. I need to hold it. This property is going to be great in my portfolio. Market's shifting. Things are moving. It may make more sense to flip it immediately. So planning our exit. Getting in is easy. Getting out profitably takes planning. So what's your strategy? Are you selling or are you holding? Before you're making an offer, you need to make sure you know what your plan is before. Do you need a quick injection of capital, or are you looking to build out the portfolio? What's my liquidity position? How much money do I have if things go wrong? And then what's the market condition? Is this a buyer's market or seller's market right now? So if you are flipping, you need to focus on resale appeal. What sells fast, not what looks fancy. Making sure that you are not taking, input from people who aren't involved in the project when you're selling, when you are making your decisions. What is selling in the neighborhood? Use that as your framework for selling your property. Prioritize those cosmetic upgrades: kitchens, baths, curb appeal, flooring, paint. Making sure that you're choosing neutral finishes that photograph well and appeal to the masses. You don't want to paint yourself into a corner by, pardon the pun, by, choosing weird wall colors, choosing weird, orange and green, that's going to kind of be a niche market. You want colors, fixtures, appliances, finishes that will appeal to as many people as possible. Making sure that you have your timeline discipline, right? Every week that you are in the project, every additional week, you're cutting into your ROI. And then, be aware of buyer expectations, right? So market comps set the standard, not Pinterest, not what you think looks cute, or I saw this trending on TikTok. No, make sure you're focusing on the market comps. So if you are fixing and then holding, fixing this to rent, you need to focus on durability and functionality, prioritizing systems and structure, right? So roof, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, making sure the guts of the property are sound, because when the hot water stops working, when the power goes out, it's you they're calling. It's you that's going to have to pay to fix it, right? So if you do it right the first time, you're going to be good to go. Making sure that you're selecting low maintenance materials, LVP, solid surface counters, matte finishes, nothing that's going to show wear and tear too easily. Obviously, you want to avoid over improvement. There's no real need for very high-end finishes that aren't going to impact your rent. Make sure that you're designing with multiple tenants in mind, right? You're going to have turnover. There's going to be rent cycles. Make sure you're prepared for that. And then when you're early on in your project looking to get your fixed to rent started, make sure you're taking into your price purchase plus your ARV in relation to your debt service coverage ratio, DSCR. Make sure that if you are interested in DSCR, that you're getting ahead of that early on in your process. So making sure that you're having a backup plan, right? Market conditions can shift during your rehab, so plan for flexibility, right? Right when we saw the market turn in 23 and 24, when houses were flying off the shelves, being bought up, 1 day on market, 3 days on market, and then things started to cool, we had a lot of our investors who had to pivot from a fix and flip to a fix and rent, making sure that you're ready for that. So choosing materials that work for either resale or rental, keeping your layout and flow improvements that keep both buyers and tenants in mind. Avoid overly niche design choices, and then verify your DSCR refinance potential. And then obviously always maintain your liquidity. So how can you leverage FlipCo to protect profit? Your numbers tell the story, outcomes prove it. So what's our advantage? How are we going to help you? We hold the loan cradle to grave. We never leave you. We're a part of the process the whole way through. So we're a true balance sheet lender. There's no third-party intermediaries, no funding delays, and no shifting terms. We lend based on the asset strength, not just credit. So if you bring us an absolute slam dunk of a deal, we're going to base most of our evaluation off of that property. We want to leverage people's experiences and their expertise in getting good deals to help them fund their next projects. And then we view all of our investors as partners, right? So we are only successful if you're successful. So ARV valuation, right? We have in-house valuation reviews. There's no third-party appraisals, means there's faster and more direct feedback. Our underwriters are assessing real comps, finishes, and resale potential for realistic ARVs. We also have an instant quote tool. You can get a quote right as you instantly, right as you submit the details of your deal, you'll get a quote instantly. It's based on the numbers you provide, and we'll still need an underwriting review, but you can get terms back very, very fast. And then we do have a ton of first-time investor guidance, making sure that your first project, goes as smoothly as possible. So, leveraging our expertise and our product, less money out of pocket. You're going to get project funding with only 10% down. You can use FlipCo's capital to scale instead of draining your bank account. We have short-term loans with extension options if you need to pivot for something unforeseen. We have 100% draw reimbursement, and we have no draw fees or third-party inspections. We can fund your draws within 72 hours, and you can leverage our team's expertise to help you keep your project moving forward. We have programs built for dual exit success. We have in-house underwriting for ARV valuations or DSCR readiness, and we don't penalize you for finishing early. We would never punish you for doing a good job. So, also talked about, that we're not taking credit as hard into account. We're removing those barriers, right? So we're asset-based, not credit-based. We're a balance sheet lender, and we won't fund a deal that we don't believe in. We know that if we're funding reckless deals or deals where the investor is set up for failure, that we'll feel that too, and we don't want any investor having those issues ever. Our in-house teams allow for fast, transparent process throughout the entire project, and then we have loan flexibility built around our investors' goals. We like to think of ourselves as a vehicle for success. Your profit starts at purchase, right? To make this full circle, profit starts at purchase. Know how to back into your numbers, 70% rule. Nail your ARV for your exit strategy needs. Make sure that you're budgeting realistically with a team of professionals, licensed professionals. Keep your liquidity strong and plan your exit up front to set you and your team up for success. Build your team of industry professionals, realtor, contractor, lender. I cannot stress that enough, to make sure that you have references for these people. One of your friends has worked with them, making sure that you're protecting yourself from the onset of your project. Make sure you contact us at any time. You can reach out to me directly. That is my cell, 713-530-6630, or scan the QR code to work with us directly.